I thought I knew my husband completely. For 47 years, I trusted him with my life. Every morning, I watched him tie his shoes the same way. Every evening, I listened to him pray the same prayers. Every night, I fell asleep to the rhythm of his breathing. I knew the sound of his footsteps on our porch. I knew the way he cleared his throat before speaking. I knew the exact spot on his forehead where worry lines appeared. But 3 days after his burial, I found a letter, and everything I believed, everything I thought I understood, collapsed. Welcome back to the Quiet Voice Diaries. If you have ever loved someone deeply, if you have ever trusted someone completely, if you have ever discovered that the person you slept beside for decades was carrying a weight you never saw, this story is for you. My name is Margaret. I am 71 years old now, and I have lived most of my life in Atlanta, Georgia, in a modest brick house on Peachtree Street, with a front porch that creaks, a garden that blooms every spring, and a mailbox my husband painted blue because I said it reminded me of the sky. For 47 years, I lived with that man. We attended the same Baptist church every Sunday morning, sat on the same wooden bench in the third row from the front. On the left side, always the left side, we prayed the same prayers, sang the same hymns, served together in the family fellowship ministry, joined the same couples prayer meetings on Wednesday nights, walked home together after every service, hand in hand, in comfortable silence. People in our congregation respected him, trusted him, admired him. The deacons sought his counsel. The younger men looked up to him. The pastor called him a pillar of faith. And I believed I knew him completely. Until 3 days after his burial, I found a letter, and I learned that love sometimes hides its deepest truths. My husband was a disciplined man. Not rigid, not cold, but steady, predictable in the most comforting way. He woke at 5:30 every morning. Even on Saturdays, even on holidays, I would hear the bathroom door close softly. Then the sound of water running. Then his footsteps down the hallway. He would make coffee, 2 cups, one for him, one for me. He would bring mine to the bedside table, kiss my forehead, and whisper, "Good morning, Margaret." He did not speak unless he had something worth saying. In arguments, he never raised his voice. Even when I did, he would wait, listen, then respond with calm logic that sometimes made me angrier, but always made me think. He was careful with his actions. He did not make promises he could not keep. If he said he would do something, he did it. He did not drink alcohol, not even at weddings. He did not gamble. He did not chase women. He did not lie. At least, I believed he did not lie. In the early years of our marriage, I was not so sure about his character. Because I am human, and humans doubt, there were moments that made me wonder. Late returns from work. He would come home at 8 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. Smelling like rain, or gasoline, or something I could not place. And he would explain, car trouble, stopped to help brother Samuel fix his fence. Meeting ran late, simple explanations, but I would watch his eyes, looking for cracks. There were unexpected trips. I need to go to Macon this weekend. Someone from the church needs help moving. And I would ask questions. Soft questions, casual questions. Who? Why you? Can I come? And he would answer, without hesitation, without nervousness, without the tells that liars have. There were unplanned expenses, money missing from the joint account. Not large amounts, but noticeable. $50, $100. And I would ask, what was this for? And he would tell me, Brother Johnson's medical bills, Sister Grace needed groceries, youth group needed new Bibles. And I would check, quietly, carefully. I would ask Brother Johnson, how are you managing the hospital costs? And he would smile, your husband helped us, God bless him. I would see Sister Grace at church, with bags of groceries, thanking my husband, with tears in her eyes. I would see the youth group holding new Bibles, with his handwriting inside the covers. To the young warriors of faith, every story matched, every explanation held, every doubt dissolved. So I stopped investigating. I stopped questioning. I stopped doubting. I told myself, this man is incapable of deceiving me. And I rested in that belief. For decades, I rested. He died on a Thursday morning. In our bedroom. In our bed. The same bed we had shared for 47 years. It was not sudden. We knew it was coming. The cancer had been eating him for 14 months. Slowly, cruelly, I watched him shrink. The man who once carried me across the threshold could barely carry himself to the bathroom. His voice, which used to fill the church with deep hymns, became a whisper. His hands, which used to hold mine with strength, became fragile, like paper. But even in sickness, he remained himself, disciplined, faithful, kind. He never complained, not once, even when the pain made him shake, even when he could not sleep, even when the medication made him confused. He would look at me and smile. I'm blessed, Margaret. God has been good. And I would cry in the bathroom, where he could not hear me. On that Thursday morning, I woke before him, which was unusual. He always woke first, but that morning, I opened my eyes at 5:15. And he was still, too still. I touched his hand. It was warm, but not quite right. I said his name. Donald. Nothing. Donald. Nothing. I shook him gently, and his eyes opened. Slowly, he looked at me, and smiled. A small smile. A tired smile. He whispered, Margaret, I love you. I have always loved you. And then his eyes closed. And he was gone. Just like that. Quietly. Like he lived. The funeral was large. Larger than I expected. The church was full. People I knew. People I did not know. All came to honor him. The pastor spoke for 20 minutes. About faithfulness. About integrity. About service. About love. The deacons carried the coffin. The choir sang his favorite hymn. It is well with my soul. And I sat in the front row. Numb, dry-eyed, because I had cried all my tears in private. After the burial, people came to the house. They brought food, casseroles, fried chicken, potato salad, banana pudding. They hugged me. They cried with me. They told me stories about him. How he helped them. How he prayed for them. How he changed their lives. And I smiled, and thanked them, and pretended I was fine. By evening, everyone was gone. The house became silent, not peaceful, silent, a heavy silence, the kind that presses on your chest. I walked through the rooms, touching things, his reading glasses on the side table, his slippers by the bed, his coat on the hook by the door. Everything was still there, but he was not, and the house felt wrong, like a body without a soul. I did not sleep that night, or the next. I just sat, in his chair, staring at nothing, thinking about everything. On the third day after the burial, I decided to clean, not because the house was dirty, but because I needed something to do. Something to keep my hands busy. Something to stop my mind from screaming. I started with the kitchen, then the living room, then the bedroom, and finally, his study, the small room at the back of the house, where he kept his books, his papers, his Bible, his private world. I had rarely entered that room. It was his space, and I respected that. But now, he was gone, and I needed to sort his things. I opened the door. The smell hit me first. Old paper, leather, and his cologne. Faint, but there. I stepped inside, and I began. I started with the bookshelf. Rows and rows of books. Theology, history, biographies of missionaries, commentaries on scripture. I dusted them, one by one. Then I reached for his Bible, the one he had carried to church for 30 years. I opened it, intending to place it somewhere special, somewhere I could see it every day. And an envelope fell out. It fluttered to the floor, landed face up, with my name on it, in his handwriting. Margaret. I froze, stared at it. My heart began to pound. Slowly at first, then faster. I bent down, picked it up. It was old. The paper was yellowed at the edges. The ink slightly faded, but my name was clear, written in his careful, steady hand. I sat in his chair, the leather chair by the window, where he used to read. I held the envelope in both hands. My fingers were shaking. I thought about not opening it, just putting it back, pretending I never found it. But I could not. I needed to know. I slid my finger under the flap, tore it carefully, pulled out 2 pages, folded neatly. I unfolded them, and I began to read. My dearest Margaret, if you are reading this, I am gone. And I have failed to keep this secret until the end. My chest tightened. Secret. What secret? I kept reading. I want you to know, first and above all else, that I loved you faithfully. Every day of our marriage. Every moment. You were my joy, my peace, my home. But I did not love you completely. Not because I did not want to, but because part of my heart was locked in a room I could never open for you. I stopped. Read that line again. Not completely. The words burned. Before I met you, there was someone else. Her name was Sarah. We were young, foolish, in love the way young people are. Recklessly. She became pregnant. I panicked. I was 22 years old. Broke. Afraid. I said things I should not have said. We fought. Terrible. Cutting fights. And one day, she left. I did not stop her. I told myself she would come back. But she did not. I searched for her, for months, but she vanished, and eventually, I gave up. I buried the chapter of my life. I moved on. I met you, and I thought God had given me a second chance. I sat back, breathing hard. My hands were cold. I wanted to stop reading, but I could not. 10 years into our marriage, I found her, by accident. I was in Savannah for a church conference, walking through the market, and I saw her, older, thinner, tired. She was selling vegetables at a small stand. And beside her was a boy, 10 years old, with my eyes, my nose, my face. I gasped out loud in the empty room. A son. He had a son. I approached her. She saw me, and she did not run. She did not cry. She just looked at me and said, "This is your son. His name is David." I stood there, frozen, unable to speak, unable to breathe. She told me she had tried to find me after he was born. But I had already moved, changed churches, started a new life. She raised him alone, in poverty, in struggle. And when I asked why she did not try harder, she said, "I did not want to ruin your new life." Margaret, that moment broke me, but I could not tell you. How could I? We had just celebrated our 10th anniversary. You were happy. We were happy. How could I bring this into our home? How could I shatter everything we had built? So I made a choice. I began supporting them, quietly, secretly. I sent money every month. For school, for rent, for food, for hospital bills. I visited them twice a year. On trips I told you were for church business. And I carried this weight. Alone. For 37 years. 37 years. I dropped the letter. My hands were shaking too much to hold it. 37 years. I picked up the letter again. Forced myself to continue. I know you will be angry. I know you will feel betrayed. And you have every right to. But please understand, I did not hide this out of deceit. I hid it out of love. I wanted you to be happy. I wanted our home to be peaceful. I wanted you to smile without shadows. And I knew, if I told you, everything would change. You would look at me differently. You would wonder every time I left the house. You would question every dollar I spent. You would carry this burden with me. And I could not do that to you. So I chose to carry it alone. I closed my eyes. Tears finally came. Hot, angry, confused. David is a good man now. He graduated from college. He works as a teacher. He married a kind woman. They have 2 children. He knows about you. I told him everything. And he has never asked to meet you. Out of respect. Out of understanding. But if you wish to meet him, his address is at the bottom of this letter. He will welcome you. Sarah passed away 5 years ago. Cancer. I was with her at the end. I held her hand. I asked her forgiveness. She gave it. And she thanked me for taking care of our son. For not abandoning him a second time. Margaret, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I hope you can forgive me. If not now, then maybe someday. I love you. Always. Donald. At the bottom of the second page was an address in Savannah, and a note. There is a photograph in the second drawer of my desk. I stood, walked to his desk, opened the second drawer, and there it was. A photograph. Faded, creased. 3 people. A woman, thin, with kind eyes, worn by life. A young man, tall, smiling, with my husband's face, and my husband, younger, healthier, standing between them. his arm around the boy, his hand on the woman's shoulder, smiling, a smile I had never seen. Not joyful, not proud, but relieved, like a man who had been carrying something heavy, and finally set it down. Just for a moment, I stared at that photograph. For a long time, I memorized every detail. The boy's eyes, the woman's tired face, the way my husband stood. Slightly protective, slightly guilty, slightly whole, in a way I had never seen him. I sat back in his chair, the letter in one hand, the photograph in the other, and I tried to process it. 47 years of marriage. And I had not known, not suspected, not even wondered. How had he hidden this so completely? How had he carried this weight without breaking? How had he smiled at me every morning, made love to me every week, prayed with me every night? While holding this secret, I did not know what I felt. Anger, yes. Betrayal, yes. But also, something else, something I could not name yet. I sat back in his chair, the letter in one hand, the photograph in the other, and I tried to process it. 47 years of marriage. And I had not known, not suspected, not even wondered. How had he hidden this so completely? How had he carried this weight without breaking? How had he smiled at me every morning, made love to me every week, prayed with me every night? While holding this secret, I did not know what I felt. Anger, yes. Betrayal, yes. But also, something else, something I could not name yet. I began asking questions, out loud, to the empty room, to the ghost of my husband. Did you think about them when you were with me? Did you compare me to her? Did you wish you had chosen differently? Did you love her more than me? Did you regret marrying me? Did you ever want to leave? No answers came, only silence, only the hum of the ceiling fan, only the distant sound of traffic. I looked at the photograph again, at the boy, David, my husband's son, a man I had never met, a man who shared half of Donald's DNA, a man who existed in the world, while I lived in ignorance. And I wondered, what kind of person is he? Does he have his kindness? Does he have his faith? Does he know about me? Does he hate me? Does he blame me for his father's absence? So many questions, and no way to answer them. Except one. The address. At the bottom of the letter. I could go. I could meet him. I could see this other life my husband had built. But did I want to? I sat there, thinking, remembering, and then, a memory surfaced, from the funeral, something I had seen but not registered. During the burial, while they were lowering the coffin, I had been standing at the graveside, surrounded by family, by church members, by friends, and I had glanced to the side, past the crowd, toward the edge of the cemetery, and there was a man, tall, in his 40s, wearing a dark suit, watching. His face was sad, but calm, like he had cried all his tears before arriving. At the time, I thought nothing of it. I assumed he was someone from the community, someone who knew Donald, but now, I realized, that was him, David, my husband's son, older now, but the same kind of eyes like in the photograph. He had been there, at his father's funeral, standing at a distance, watching, grieving, unable to come closer, unable to stand with the family, unable to claim his place. Because of me, because I did not know. I closed my eyes, and I saw it again. More clearly now, the way he looked at the coffin. Not like a stranger, like a son. His face had been tight, holding back emotion, his jaw clenched, his eyes wet, and he had stood there, for the entire service, never moving, never speaking, just watching his father being buried. From a distance, like he had lived his whole life. From a distance, and I had not known. The weight of that realization crushed me. I began to cry, not for myself, but for them, for the woman who raised a child alone, For the boy who grew up without a father in his home. For the man who could not openly grieve. For the secret that had stolen so much from so many. And I felt guilty, which made no sense. I had done nothing wrong. I had not known. But still, I felt guilty, because my happiness had been built on their silence. My peace had required their suffering. My intact family had demanded their fractured one. And Robert had orchestrated it all. To protect me, to shield me, to give me a life without complication. But at what cost? After the guilt came anger. Real anger. Not loud, not explosive, but deep, burning, constant. I was angry at Donald. For lying. For hiding. For making decisions about my life without consulting me. For treating me like a child who needed protection. For assuming I could not handle the truth. I stood up, paced the room. I wanted to scream at him. But he was not there. I wanted to demand answers. But he was gone. I wanted to shake him. To make him look me in the eye. To make him explain. But all I had was a letter. And a photograph. And a grave. I began talking to him anyway. Out loud. In the empty study. How could you do this to me? How could you lie beside me every night with this in your heart? How could you kiss me every morning knowing you were living a double life? How could you let me trust you so completely? How could you make me feel safe when nothing was real? My voice rose. I did not care. There was no one to hear. Did you think I was weak? Did you think I could not handle it? Did you think I would leave you? Did you think I would stop loving you? Did you even give me the choice? I grabbed the photograph, stared at his face. You decided for me, Robert. You took away my right to know. You took away my right to choose. You took away my right to be part of your whole life. I threw the photograph across the room. It hit the wall, fell to the floor, glass cracked. But even in my anger, I could not tell anyone. The marriage didn't produce a child, so I even felt cheated the more. I wanted to call my sister, to tell her everything, to cry on her shoulder, to hear her say, "You have every right to be angry." But I could not, because everyone loved Donald, everyone respected him, everyone saw him as a saint. The faithful husband, the devoted Christian, the pillar of the church. And I did not want to destroy that. Even in death, even in anger, I still wanted to protect him. Which made me angrier at myself, for being so conditioned to preserve his image. For caring more about his reputation than my own pain. For choosing silence over truth. Again. So I carried it alone. I cried in the bathroom. At 2 a.m. With the shower running, so no one would hear. Even though there was no one in the house. I cried in the car. Parked in empty lots, where no one would see. I cried in the garden. On my knees, pulling weeds that did not need pulling. Just to have something to do with my hands. People from church came to check on me. "How are you holding up, Sister Margaret?" And I smiled. "I'm managing. God is faithful." They brought more food, more casseroles, more sympathy, and I accepted it, graciously, while screaming inside, at night, alone in bed. The questions came, relentless. Did he think about them when he was with me? Did he compare me to her? When he made love to me, was he wishing I was her? When he said he loved me, did he mean it? Or was I just the acceptable choice? The safe choice. The choice that looked good to everyone else. And the worst question, did he ever regret choosing me? I would lie there, staring at the ceiling, torturing myself, with images I had created in my mind. Of Donald with Sarah, young, in love, free, before responsibility, before guilt, before me. And I wondered, was that the real him? Was the man I knew just a performance? Was our entire marriage a lie? And then I became angry at myself. For not knowing, for not seeing, for being so blind. How had I missed it? 47 years, and I had not suspected a thing. What kind of wife was I? What kind of woman? I prided myself on knowing him. on understanding him, on being his partner. But I had known nothing. I had understood nothing. I had been a fool. And that realization was almost worse than the betrayal. One night, about 2 months after finding the letter, I broke completely. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking tea, staring at nothing, and something inside me just snapped. I stood up, walked to his study, grabbed the letter, the photograph, everything, and I almost burned it. I almost destroyed it all. To erase it, to make it not real. But I stopped, my hand hovering over the trash can. And I asked myself, what will that change? Will burning this letter bring him back? Will destroying this photograph erase the truth? Will pretending I never found it make me happy again? No, it would not. So I put it back in the drawer, and I sat, and I cried, until I had no tears left. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Slowly, the anger began to fade. Not because I chose to let it go, but because I was tired. Tired of being angry, tired of crying, tired of carrying this weight alone. The human heart can only sustain rage for so long before it exhausts itself, and mine was exhausted. One evening, about 4 months after finding the letter, I was sitting in the living room, in Robert's chair, the one by the window. The sun was setting, casting orange light across the room, and I was holding the photograph. Not in anger this time. Just looking at it, really looking at it, at the woman, Sarah. Her face was kind, despite the tiredness, despite the hardship. There was no bitterness in her eyes. Just acceptance. And I thought, she loved him, not possessively, not demandingly, but quietly, privately, enough to raise his child alone. Enough to never ask for more than he could give. Enough to let him build a life with someone else. Without interference, without revenge, without bitterness. What kind of love was that? I began to imagine her life. A single mother, in the 1970s, in the South. The judgment she must have faced. The whispers, the shame, the struggle. Raising a boy alone, working multiple jobs, going without, so her son could have. And when Robert found her again, she could have demanded, she could have exposed him, she could have ruined everything. But she did not. She accepted his help, quietly, and she raised their son, with dignity, with grace. And when she was dying, she thanked him, she forgave him, she released him. I sat there, and I felt respect for a woman I had never met, for a woman I had every reason to hate, but could not. And then I thought about David, the boy in the photograph. Now a man, a teacher, a husband, a father. He grew up knowing his father existed, but could not claim him. He grew up seeing other boys with their fathers. At baseball games, at school events, at church, while his father came twice a year. In secret, like a visitor, not a parent. How did that shape him? Did he resent Robert? Did he resent me? Did he grow up angry? Or did he understand? I wanted to know. I wanted to meet him. To see what kind of man he had become. To see if Donald's goodness had passed to him. Despite the distance. Despite the secrecy. Despite everything. And then I asked myself the question I had been avoiding. If Donald had told me. If he had come home 10 years into our marriage and said, "Margaret, I have a son. I just found out. I need to help him." What would I have done? I sat with that question for a long time, and I knew the answer. I would have been devastated. I would have felt betrayed. I would have questioned everything. I would have wondered if he loved her more. I would have watched him leave for those trips. And I would have imagined things. Terrible things. I would have resented the money he sent. Even though it was for a child. I would have resented the time he spent. Even though it was fatherhood. I would have resented the secret he kept. Even though it was before me. And our marriage. Would it have survived? Maybe. But it would have been different. strained, shadowed. Every argument would have circled back to it. Every moment of distance would have been questioned. Every late night, every unexplained expense, every quiet moment, would have been poisoned by doubt, by suspicion, by pain. And that was when I understood. Donald had not hidden this to deceive me. He had hidden it to preserve us. He had carried this burden alone, so I would not have to. He had suffered in silence, so I could live in peace. He had sacrificed his own comfort, so I could smile, without shadows, without questions, without pain. And that was love. Not the kind of love that is easy, not the kind that feels good, but the kind that costs everything. The kind that chooses the other person's happiness, even at the expense of your own. Even when it hurts, even when it means dying with a secret. I cried again, but different tears this time. Not angry tears, not betrayed tears, but sad tears, grateful tears, complicated tears. I cried for Donald, who had carried this alone, who had never been able to fully rest, who had died with this weight still on his chest. I cried for Sarah, who had loved him quietly, who had never asked for what she deserved, who had died thanking him. I cried for David, who had grown up in the margins, who had never known his father fully, who had respected the silence. And I cried for myself, for the years I had lived in partial truth, for the innocence I had lost, for the husband I thought I knew, and the husband I was only now beginning to understand. I took out the letter again. Read the address at the bottom. 1427 Magnolia Street, Savannah, Georgia. I could go. I could meet David. I could see this other part of Donald's life. But should I? What would I say? Hello. I'm the woman your father chose over your mother. I'm the woman who got the life you should have had. I'm the woman who did not know you existed. How do you start that conversation? I decided to write first. I sat at the kitchen table, with a pen and paper. And I wrote, Dear David, my name is Margaret. I was married to your father for 47 years. I found a letter after he died. And I learned about you. I want you to know that I am not angry. I am not here to judge. I am not here to intrude. But if you are willing, I would like to meet you. To know you. To understand the part of your father's life that I never saw. You owe me nothing. I understand if you do not want to meet. But if you do, I will be here, with respect and care. Margaret. I mailed it the next day. And I waited. 2 weeks later, I received a reply. A simple envelope, with neat handwriting. I opened it. Dear Margaret, thank you for writing. I have thought about you often over the years. Wondered what kind of woman you were. Wondered if you knew. Wondered if you hated me. I would very much like to meet you. Not to cause pain, but to honor my father. And perhaps, to find some peace. If you are able to come to Savannah, I will welcome you. If not, I understand. With gratitude, David. I read it 3 times. And I made my decision. I would go. I drove to Savannah on a Saturday morning. The address led me to a modest neighborhood. Tree-lined streets, small houses with front porches, children playing in yards. I parked in front of 1427 Magnolia Street. Sat in the car for 10 minutes. Breathing, praying, steadying myself. Then I got out, walked to the door, and knocked. A woman answered, young, smiling, kind eyes. You must be Margaret. Please, come in. I stepped inside, and there he was. David, tall, in his 40s, with Robert's face, but softer, gentler. He stood, extended his hand. Mrs. Margaret, thank you for coming. I took his hand, and I saw it. Donald's hands. The same long fingers. The same steady grip. And I smiled. Thank you for seeing me. We sat, talked for hours. He told me about his childhood. About his mother. About the visits from Donald. Twice a year. Brief, but meaningful. He told me Donald had been kind, generous, present in the ways he could be. He told me he did not resent me. Or his father. He understood. Life is complicated. Love is complicated. And sometimes good people make choices that hurt. Not out of malice, but out of fear, out of love, out of the impossible mathematics of trying to honor everyone. I told him about Donald. About our life. About the man I knew. About the husband he was. And David listened, with tears in his eyes. He loved you very much, David said. He talked about you. He said you were the best thing that ever happened to him. He said you made him want to be better. And I cried, because I believed him. Before I left, David gave me something. A photograph of Donald, with David's children, his grandchildren, smiling, at a park, playing. He met them, David said. Before he got sick, he was a good grandfather. Even if it was only a few times. I held the photograph, and I felt complete, not whole, but complete, like the missing piece of the puzzle had finally been placed. And the picture made sense. Not a happy picture, but a true one. I drove home that evening, slowly, thinking, feeling, processing. When I arrived, I went straight to Donald's study, opened the drawer, took out the letter, the photograph, and I placed them back in his Bible, where I had found them. I sat in his chair, and I spoke to him. One last time. I understand now, Donald. I understand why you did it. I understand the weight you carried. I understand the sacrifice you made. And I forgive you, not because you were perfect, but because you loved me. In the best way you knew how. I learned something late in life. You can love someone deeply, and still not know everything about them. Every human being has a private room. A place where they keep the things too heavy to share. Too painful to speak. Too complicated to explain. Some rooms are locked by shame. Some by fear. Some by regret. Donald's room was locked by love. He did not hide his past to hurt me. He hid it to protect me. And in doing so, he hurt himself, every day, for 37 years. That is the kind of love that does not make sense. Until you are older. Until you understand that love is not always about honesty. Sometimes, love is about mercy. About choosing what the other person can carry. About bearing alone what would crush them. I placed the Bible back on the shelf. Turned off the light. Closed the door to his study. And I walked away, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in peace. The kind of peace that comes from understanding. The kind that comes from forgiveness. The kind that comes from accepting that people are complicated. And love is complicated. And life does not fit into neat categories of right and wrong. Sometimes, good people do questionable things. For good reasons. And we have to decide. Do we judge them by the secret? Or by the life they lived in front of us? I chose the life. The 47 years of faithfulness. The mornings he brought me coffee. The nights he held my hand. The prayers he whispered over me. The love he showed me. Every single day. That was real. That was true. And that was enough. I still live in our house. On Peachtree Street. With the blue mailbox. And the creaking porch. I still attend the same church. Sit in the same pew. Third row from the front. On the left. I still pray the same prayers. Sing the same hymns. But now, I understand something I did not before. Every person in that church. Every person on that pew. Has a private room. A locked door. A secret they carry. Not because they are bad. But because they are human. And sometimes, love means carrying those secrets alone. So others can live in light. I placed the letter back in the Bible. Returned it to the shelf. And I have not opened it again. Some truths come too late. Some love speaks only after death. But that does not make it less real. David loved me. I know that now. Not perfectly. Not completely. But deeply. Sacrificially. In the way that costs everything. And that understanding is the heaviest gift he ever left me. If this story touched you, if it made you think about the people you love, the secrets they might carry, the burdens they might bear alone, Please share it with someone who needs to hear it, with someone who is grieving, with someone who feels betrayed, with someone who needs to understand that love is not always simple, but it is always worth it. Tell me, do you believe love sometimes means carrying pain alone? Do you believe some secrets are kept out of kindness? Do you believe forgiveness is possible, even when the truth comes too late? I would love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay gentle with your heart. And remember, the people you love are carrying more than you know. Treat them with kindness, even when you do not understand. Especially when you do not understand. Because someday, you might. This is Margaret. Thank you for listening. If this story reminded you of God's grace and human weakness, take a moment to like and share it. Subscribe for more faith-filled stories. May peace fill your heart tonight.